Currently, he's enrolled at Harvard University, completing postdoctorate studies as a Harvard Fellow. Dr. Jenkins also serves as a faculty member for the Executive Institute on Inclusion and on the Diversity Business Journal Review Board. Dr. Jenkins is a proud Rotarian and a Paul Harris Fellow from the Rotary Club of Fayetteville, Arkansas. He has served as a former Rotaract advisor, Interact sponsor, RILA presenter, Youth Services Chair, 2 terms on Club Board of Directors, and graduated from his district and zone leadership academy. Dr. Jenkins is currently one of the youngest youth exchange district chairs in Rotary International. He has been a speaker at various Rotary conventions. Dr. Jenkins serves on multiple boards, locally and internationally, in education, business, and inclusion initiatives. He has recently been selected and appointed to serve on the first Rotary International Committee DEI Task Force to align Rotary's diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment, strategy, goals, and initiatives. Today, he is known as Dr. Bowtie Todd, who has given inspirational talks and education to audiences of all sizes and backgrounds throughout North America, Asia, South America, and Europe. And we are truly extremely honored to have him here with us today to talk about moving from diversity and inclusion. His session today is even more important to us because as a district, as Rotaract District 3292, we have recently adopted a new strategic plan where we have defined 5 core values. And one of those values is to integrate diversity into all of our programs and engagements for the coming years. So we couldn't be more thankful to have you, Dr. Jenkins. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over this floor to our speaker for today, Dr. Bowtie.
Wow, thank you so much. It is so fun to be here. And good evening to you all, and good morning here from the United States. I am so happy to be a part of this conversation. And it's a lot of energy. I can see it. So many people coming through the lobby. It's just a lot going on everywhere. But I am excited to have this conversation with you all. Moving from diversity to inclusion. Just want to make sure you can see my screen okay. Just give me thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Sorry if you hear the notifications in the background. That's everyone coming in. But I will let you all continue to allow people in so we can go ahead and get this conversation started. So without further ado, what are we going to talk about for this next 30-45 minutes together? Well, of course, I'm going to definitely talk to you about bow ties because I love bow ties. And it's a little conversation around bow tie. I get the pleasure of serving as a executive for our bow tie leadership foundation and my consulting firm. But most importantly, I'm going to talk a little bit, tell you a little story, so we can all level set and align and talk about diversity and inclusion. And what bring us all here today is the Rotary family. And so I'm also going to tell you some insights about Rotary and where we're at and where we're going. And of course, at the end, before we dismiss, I would like to open it up for questions and however we want to facilitate that. So let's go ahead and get started. You may wonder what's up with this guy with the bow tie. Why do he have a bow tie on, and why do they call him Dr. Bowtie Todd? Well, my friends, today, I love to travel. And as I travel all across the world, people ask me about my necktie. They ask me, where do I get it from? Did I buy it myself? Did I tie it myself? And I started to see that this was an interesting conversation starter. So when I travel, even when I travel to Korea, people still come up and try to look at my bow tie. And I was like, wow, this is an interesting piece that everyone is talking to me because of my necktie. And so what I started to think about is, what if we lived in a world where people would genuinely stop what they're doing to come and approach another human and stranger that they never met before? What if we lived in that world where people will be curious about who you are and what you have on with compassion? And so, what I started to think about, because I see this in practice and I see this in research, is that one of the most difficult things in the workplace today, 'cause I work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies in corporate America, is that people do not know how to have conversations with people they disagree with or people that they meet for the first time. And you all know, as being young professionals or in this space, is that, your first impressions are very important. And especially it's important for us as Rotaractors how to engage with people we may disagree with, because we're not going to always agree. So what I did was I created an acronym that's very simple around the bow tie, how you can have everyday conversations. And this is our expectations for our conversation today, for our presentation. So let me go to share with you this acronym and what each letter means of bow tie for me. So let's start with the first letter, which is the letter B. Okay, this is rule number one. In any conversation, I need you to be mentally present. Okay, I know that it's late evening. You probably had some good dinner. You're probably thinking about other stuff. You're on your WhatsApp. I need you to be mentally present for the conversation. When you come in and talk with individuals, so many times we could be thinking about other things that we're not mentally present. Yes, we're physically present, or today we're virtually present. But number one, I ask that you be mentally present. So let's go to the next letter, which is the letter O. O stands for, in any conversation, I ask that you have an open mind and an open heart. So I know it sounds simple, but sometimes it's pretty challenging to achieve, because if you come in with trying to shame and blame or trying to convince someone, you don't really have openness. And so I ask that in the conversation, especially when it's difficult, have an open mind and open heart. The next letter of bow tie is the letter W. And W stands for willingness. Willing to share your own perspective and own your own truth, because I believe that everyone on this call has an interesting perspective and a story to share. And it's up to you to share it. So also, when you in a conversation, not only should you listen and learn, but you should also share. And that takes a period of being vulnerable. That takes some courage, right? And also it takes you to really know your truth, because so many people try to hide behind everyone else's truth, and they don't talk about their own, what they believe in. And so in these conversations, you have a voice, so definitely use it. Well, I'm not sure if we have any bow tie wearers on the call today, but usually people who tell me, who wear bow ties, or they say the reason why they don't wear a bow tie is because of this challenge, which is this, really looking at this knot in the middle. A lot of people ask me, well, how do you get that knot to work, Dr. Jenkins? How do you really make that knot? Wow, you have to love technical issues. I'm not sure. I got kicked out and now I'm back in. So let me reshare my screen and let's continue. But the point I was making, my friends, is that honestly, when you look at this necktie, this bow tie, and usually people tell me the most difficult part of it is how to get this knot in the middle. They usually point at this knot and they say, well, Dr. Jenkins, can you help me learn how to tie that? And honestly, I've seen this is the most challenging part of today's conversations, which is the TIE. How do you tie it together? How do you lead the conversation better than you came in? And my friends, today, that is the bow tie philosophy. I want you to be here. I want you to be open, be willing to share your perspective. Of course, we have the chat feature, but most importantly, write down things what you can learn and what you can take away. So let's get started. If you agree with the bow tie rules in the chat, can you write the word bow tie? Let's see if I can see that in the chat. If you agree to the bow tie rules today in the chat, let me see you write the word bow tie. Or is the meeting chat, okay, I was about to say, is the meeting chat, okay, there we go. I see bow ties. Okay, they're coming through, because it's over 150 people on here, and I want to make sure we're about to have an awesome bow tie conversation. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Let's go. Let's do this. All right, so before we get started talking about diversity and inclusion, I think it's very important that we define what diversity and inclusion means, because so many times we come into these conversations and we all say these words, but we never spend the time to define what they mean to us. So let me give you my perspective. When I think of the word diversity, Diversity to me is twofold. Diversity is visible and invisible differences that make someone complete. Okay? So visibly, you see me on camera right now. You see a good looking brown guy from the United States. That is my visible difference. Okay? But invisible, you may not know that I'm one of 13 kids. I can habla español and follow Portuguese. I'm afraid of heights, but I love to travel on planes. So I want people to understand when you think about this word diversity, yes, it is the things you see on the outside, like your different colorism or colors or your different shades, your gender, things of those abilities or disabilities. But it's also the things you cannot see, like your experience, your sexual orientation, your faith. All of those things matter when we talk about diversity. And we also understand that depending on where you at, diversity can be defined very differently based on the local laws. And so I want you to also understand what is the definition of diversity and what it means for your Rotaract clubs. Okay, let's go to this next word that we throw out a lot lately, inclusion. What is inclusion? Inclusion to me is so fun. I love inclusion because it is an action. It is an action where you can create an environment, a culture, a climate where we respect all these visible and invisible differences. Very simple, right? Now, the thing around inclusion is that you don't only want to create an environment where you just, an environment of respect. I have no clue why this keep going on and off. I really don't. I don't know if because I'm not used to Teams. Even though I work with Microsoft and I work at Microsoft, I'm going to talk to my team about this because I actually have Microsoft Teams on my computer and it's not working well today. So I apologize if I keep coming in and out. But let's continue with the conversation. Inclusion is so important because it really allows for us to not only respect individuals, but it also allows for us to see individuals. It also allows for us to create the space for us to hear individuals. And I tell people this often is that inclusion is a space where people can be seen and heard. And a lot of people ask me, why do I put heard in my definition? Well, because how many of you all know you could be doing a lot of talking, but that does not mean anyone is listening. So it's very important that in the inclusive climate, that all of our members of our communities and individuals are seen and heard. Now, I'm not saying that in inclusion, everyone must agree. Okay, I'm not saying that everyone's going to agree. I'm also saying like in inclusion that every idea that's implemented it's actually going to be recommended and it's going to be the next best thing. No, that's not what inclusion is. Inclusion is ensuring that everyone has a space and has a voice. Okay, makes sense? All right, let's keep going. You can't talk about true inclusion, my friends, without talking about equity. Okay. Now, like I said, I work with leaders every day, and business leaders, they sometimes they have a really big challenge of understanding human equity. They understand business equity, but when it comes to human and social equity, they're a little challenged. And so what I have to do is I have to really break down the difference between equity and equality. And because it is a huge difference between the two. I used to bring my book, I used to bring my dissertation. However, no, none of the business leaders, they used to read it. They didn't read my book. So what I started to do is I just started to do something different to explain the difference between equity and equality. So what I do is I just really simply use my shoe. And no disrespect, I just pull up my pants leg and I show them my shoe. And here's the difference, my friends, when it comes to equality. Equality is I wear a size 10 and a half shoe and I love the color brown. Well, equality is, hey, you get a shoe, Shristi, Ruby get a shoe, Aisha get a shoe, Shamar get a shoe. It's like everybody gets shoes, okay? That is equality. But equity is giving everyone on this call a shoe that fits them. And you really have to think about that. I have to think about that. You know what? I have to think about it so much that I actually have to call on you and say, hey, what color shoe do you like to wear? What is your favorite shoe, right? And I guarantee you is that if I ask you what's your favorite shoe to wear and your favorite color, and you get that shoe, you know how much happier you will become, right? But that's not the world that we're living in. We're living in a world where people are giving you shoes that they feel comfortable in, and you're forced to wear them. So some of our parents, some of our grandparents, they've been wearing shoes all their life that's not their own, and they are now learn how to wear them, but they've been very uncomfortable. And that is the difference between equity and equality, is that equity is really meeting you where you're at, giving you what you need to be successful. Here's another great way to look at it if you've never seen this across social media, but it's a great comparison between equity and equality. And it shows that these individuals are trying to see the sports game. And these individuals are, you could see when it comes to equality, how everyone is getting the same size crate or barrel or box. When you see equity, you can see that you're trying to elevate. Now, picture is worth 1,000 words. But do you know when I show this to leaders, do you know I still have people ask me, so Dr. Jenkins, what you're saying is that this work is all about short people. We're only here to prop up short people. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about today, my friends. This is not about a short people initiative. What we're talking about is not looking at the question of height. So we had to go redesign this. And as you can see, my friends, what we're talking about is not the question of height, but we're looking at the structural barriers to opportunity. That is what we're talking about in equity. What is the barriers that get in the way of us being the best human beings we can be on this planet? That is what we're talking about today. And the question that I want to leave with y'all to think about is, what is our reality in this space, in our communities which we live and serve? What is the reality in our workplaces? What is the reality in our schools? What is the reality in our own homes when it comes to true, equitable, and inclusive treatment? Think about that, because that's something I need you to ponder upon. Why are we talking about this today, Dr. Jenkins? Like, we get it. Of course, we're young, we're diverse. Like, why are we still talking about this today? Because it is a case why this is important in Rotary. It's a case that's important for human, this, I will even call it human empathy and human compassion. But here's the reason why, just in case you don't know, because some people, they don't understand why we're still talking about this. And I would tell you it's three cases what we see in research. The first case I say is the social case. The social case says that this is important because the world is changing, so we need to change as well. Okay, it's like, get with the program, people, get with the program. Okay, that's one case. The next case we call is the moral case. The moral case is saying the reason why this is important is because it's the right thing to do. Okay, it's going to help everyone out. But do you know, working in business organizations every day, I met several people who don't agree with the moral case or the social case. Do you know I've also met some of those people in Rotary around the world who don't agree with the social case or moral case? But one case that I've seen that's been able to stick very well is what I call is the business case. And the business case says, if we get this right as an organization, we will make more money and save money. And then it's like, ooh, I want to learn about this now. I want to talk about how we can make this inclusion work. And that's what I see a lot happening in businesses. But it is a case for us as the Rotary family. And it says that if we get this right, it will make us simple. It makes us all bigger, better, and stronger together. It's a case where everyone is included. And guess what, my friends? Everybody wins. Everybody wins, including old people, including white people, including gay people, just whoever, everybody wins. This is the human case of why we're talking about it. And it's very, very important that we understand that inclusion is for everybody to be a part of the party. It's for everyone to dance how they want to dance. And who don't want to dance? We want to have a good time while we are, enjoying our service above self. So I just wanted to make sure we all understand when I come into the conversation of what DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, what it means for me. Now, let me tell you a quick little story about this little boy I got to know very, very well. This little boy, when we talk about his past, as I got to know his story, this little kid, his mother had him at a very young age in the United States. they had a, I think his mother was 15 years old when he was born. And so of course, with any type of young parent, it was a lot of challenges. Well, also this little boy and his family was raised in what they call low income housing projects. I'm not sure what they call it in India or Nepal, but in certain parts of the world, it's called the slums. It calls, I don't know, someone could put in the chat what's the equivalent to low income housings and what do they call it in your area. But this is essentially what it was in the United States. And so, as you can see, now, of course, comparison around the world, this could be very, 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 very privileged to live in this type of area. But in the United States, this is what they call low income housing compared to the United States. Okay. And so this little boy was raised in low income housing and the projects. And a lot of things happen in the projects in the United States, just like a lot of places around the world. It's a lot of things around crime. It's a lot of things around violence, a lot of things around human trafficking that happen in the projects. And it's a really terrible state. And in this little boy's neighborhood, all those things happen. It was gangs, this is also the neighborhood in the United States that they look at their third graders' test scores in this neighborhood to see if they're going to go to prison or not. This is the place that they look at in the United States for this. And so they're always trying to meet with the kids. And so they hear this little boy's story. And, of course, he did not know that he was growing up in all of this because he used to talk about what he called volunteers who used to come to the projects and take him to different experiences, such as a camp. Where he learned how to canoe, where he learned how to shoot a bow and arrow, and really try to have a new experience. And he would talk about these volunteers who were so nice and who always used to come to his apartment to recruit them. And as this little boy told me, he didn't even know they were poor. What little kid thinks they're poor, especially when you have food on your table every day and no one teaches you that you're poor until you get out of what poor looks like, right? And so he started to understand that when he went into school because he loved school. And as you can see, you can't see it very well, but if you look on the screen and you start to looking at your left, that was the school district or what they considered the poor school district. And he had to actually test into what they considered the white district because in the United States it was very big on black areas which around race and then white areas around race. And of course in the United States a lot of the white areas had a lot more, better infrastructure and better schools. And so, in order for this little kid, this little black kid to go into the school, he had to test into the school and he wasn't zoned. So, he didn't have a bus or he couldn't walk to school. But the reason why he was able to go because his grandmother was a janitor worker or a custodian worker. She cleans up the schools. And so that's why he was able to go there. And you can see the transitions. And now he beat the odds. He graduated from high school. So he went there and he got involved in student activities. He graduated from high school and he beat the odds and went to college. He didn't stop there. He also joined the Rotary family and he studied abroad in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And he studied at University of Campinas, and that's where he was able to learn how to speak Portuguese. And I'm back again. And that little boy is here today talking to you. I'm so sorry that it keeps knocking me out. I have no clue what's going on over here. But I'm going to keep going due to time. But I tell you that little story is because not only because I'm here today, but I tell you this because I'm a proud Rotarian. I am a proud Rotarian. I'm a proud Rotaractor. I've been in Rotary now for going on about 10 years. And I joined Rotary, of course, at a very, very young age. But I tell you that Rotary has taken me to places that I never thought I would ever imagine that I go. I've been all around the world. But I tell you all these things is because there's hope for the future because you exist today. And you have chosen to spend your time and commit to something bigger than yourself. And that is the hope that we want to talk about today. And so, yes, in Rotary, as you can see, I've been involved with my Rotary Club. I've been on the board. I've been on my zone board. Now on the Rotary International convention. I spoke at several ones in the past, and I love Rotary. Okay, I love Rotary, but that's not the point I want you all to leave with. I just want you to know that I'm very proud to be here, and I also don't share this space alone. Of course, I also have my lovely wife here, who allowed for me to share my gift with the world. And guess what? If you go to my Instagram, you will see. But as of 4 months ago, we just welcomed our first baby son. And so we just had our first little boy, Mateo. And so, yeah, if you go to my Instagram, Dr. Bowtie Todd, you will see some of his bow ties that he have. And of course, my life, as you all heard in my bio, I'm still studying. I just finished my program at Harvard, and I just got invited to faculty. So I will be on faculty at Harvard starting in the spring. Um, and so, yes, life is still busy and it's still moving. But here's the point. I share my story once again because I want you to know there's hope for the hopeless because of what you do every day. I really do believe that. But everyone on this call has a hope for y'all. Just got to bear with me. We're going to bear. I have no clue why we keep jumping in and out. But know that I love you. Okay, know that I love you. But I tell you all of these things is because we have hope for tomorrow. And honestly, because of what you do every day, honestly, being a Rotaractor, we can build a bigger, better, stronger Rotary. And I want to share with you some of the reasons and how we can do this together. So I'm going to share my screen again because I want to make sure I get through to the Q&A. But if you all did not know about Rotary International, they set not only a position statement, but they set a goal for how many women that we should have in Rotary. And let me tell you the reason why. It's because we have a lot of diversity in Rotary, but this is like one of the only things that we can track today that's pretty accurate. We also have stats around age, so we can look at age, but because I'm on the committee, we're all looking at thinking about what are the other diversities that we can look at to track as we move forward. But let me give you all some of the perspective of this goal. The board of directors set a goal that everyone in Rotary family, especially the Rotary leadership and Rotarians, we want to be 30% of women by June 2023. So I want to show you how we look around the world. As you can see around the world, this is overall Rotarians who are women. Okay. As you can see, some places around the world are still underneath, as low as 7%. And some is still growing. But let me tell you why there's hope for tomorrow. Because if we look at how Rotaractors around the world with women compared to the Rotary clubs, we are at 50% in Rotaractors that are women across the world. So what does that tell you all? You all are the leaders of today and tomorrow. And I need you all to stop saying that as Rotaractors. Oh, I'm the future leader. I am the leader of no, you are the leader of right now. We cannot wait until tomorrow. We cannot wait until the future. We need you right now, and I need you, and you are already here. So let's continue to thrive because clearly we are doing something right in the Rotaract clubs around the world because of what you do every day. But it is some countries and regions that we look around the world. I know this is a very busy slide, but it is some countries and regions that have over 30% or more women who are Rotarians. So we are progressing, we are getting better. So we do have opportunities to celebrate and to look at that. Even looking at our club presidents, to our Rotary International directors. This is the first time ever in history for two things. First, we now have a Rotary International human being who so happened to be a woman who's going to be our president. And she's a great friend of mine, Jennifer Jones. But we also have at least 47% of the directors at the board leadership are women. Why does this matter? It matters because we can change the game. And just like Holger said, we're here to open opportunities. And we want to think about that. How we open opportunities to ensure that everyone can be a part of this hopeful today and tomorrow. Because there's no hope without action, my friends. Okay? We can talk about these things all day. We can feel good. but we got to put some action, and we are the beacon of hope on this call. So most people ask us, well, Todd, where does inclusion start? How do we start with this? So I'm going to tell you, my friend, is that inclusion starts, it starts with the letter I. It starts with, how do I show up in this space? How do I come into my clubs? How do I interact with my family and friends when no one's watching? What am I doing, to really be this leader in my community? So the first work starts with yourself. Okay, it starts with asking your questions around the biases that you have. Oh my gosh, this is hilarious. But it is our family. I'm just going to keep it going. It is our family. And I want you to know that you have the power to really change this game. And so as we continue to have this conversation, not only do you have the power of starting with a lot of individuals also ask me, why is it so challenging for the older Rotarians to get with the program, Dr. Jenkins? Why are we still challenged with this today? And I would tell you the reason why is because when we see, especially when we see this space, is that sometimes we see mindsets are the hardest to change. Okay. And that's why I tell people, I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen so I don't want to mess anything up again. But the mindsets are the hardest to change. Okay. And what we see in this is that you can't always change people's minds and hearts. It could be. And as a psychologist, I know you can change minds and hearts. But what I've also known as a sociologist is that the time that it takes to change someone's mind and versus their behaviors is drastically different. So what I want you all to think about is, yes, I think you should definitely influence minds and hearts, but I also say you should think about, what are your behaviors? What are your behaviors that you are leading this inclusion work? You all have a strategic plan, and your strategic plan may have some things around representation, but what are you encouraged to model the behavior you wish to see? Okay, because guess what? Your little brothers and sisters, they're looking up at you, right? Your parents are learning from you. Your grandparents are doing things differently because you're doing things differently. So don't forget how much power you have in your behaviors of what people are watching every day. So keep those things in mind. The next thing I would say is that this work is not easy. This is not easy work, okay? So it's going to be tough sometimes, okay? It's going to be people who don't agree with you. And understand that everyone is on their own journey. Understand that everyone is on their own journey of maturity in this space. And so I always tell people that when you do this work, please practice giving grace in space, because everyone is showing up very differently. And you want to be able to have that empathetic lens, because you want to understand that we can all do this together, but you want to practice that grace in space. So understand that the role is not difficult, or it will be difficult, but it is worth it. The next thing I want to tell you, as Rotaractors, of course, you have the strategic plan as a club, as a whole entire district, but you also need a strategic plan for your own local clubs, right? So think about those opportunities that you need to do to be that transformative leader in your community. Okay, what are the who is missing in your club? Yes, it could be around women, or it could be around the marginalized communities that that may not have access. How are you going to those areas to be not a savior, but to be a partner, to be someone who they can relate to, right? How are you going to build relationships? And that's what we can really do well as Rotaractors. We know how to go and we know how to talk to people, okay? We know how to go into a room and we know how to smile. We know how to make people feel welcome. So leverage that and go into communities in your own backyard who you probably know that has not felt welcome. Rotary can change that. And I really do believe that. And honestly, just as we have as the Rotary family, we end polio. Think about that. If we can end polio, I really do believe that we can end racism, sexism, and all these isms. I really do believe that we can do that. I know it's scary. I know it's bigger than us. But hey, if we don't dream big, we may never land there. And you and I are the future of today and tomorrow. So we can go ahead and bond together across this world and make this happen. I really do believe that. But here's where I would land, because I want us to get to questions, is that in this space, small changes can make a big difference, my friends. And I know a lot, we talked about a lot, but a small change can make a big difference just by you going and talking to someone online or checking on each other. We just navigated, and we're still navigating a pandemic. Okay? This is the first time in history that we started as a human race to stop and pause and really mean when we ask each other, how are you feeling today? Is there anything I can do to help you? Let's continue that, my friends, because we need each other. We need each other more than you know. And the COVID-19 has helped us understand how much of the human race is more of this one race together, and that it takes a village. But understand, small changes can make a big difference. So as you think about, since we all have jobs and going to school, and we all have resumes or profiles, you build your resume to get a good job, you build your education to get a good job, but how are you building your inclusive resume? And I want you to think about that. What will be on your inclusion resume if we ask you to showcase it? How are you building these behaviors? How are you building these experiences to make a better, more equitable and inclusive world? And so, my friends, today, thank you for letting me come share. Sorry about all the technical difficulties and the glitches, but here's my contact information. Please hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm Bowtie Todd, and I'm your friend, and I'm your big brother or your little brother. And just know that you can call on me at any time. But I want to say thank you, and I want to open it up now for Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I don't get clicked out again. I'm not sure what's going on there, but feel free to take a snapshot of the information and things of that nature. So now I'm going to turn it back over us to do Q&A.
Thank you so much, Dr. Todd. It was such a powerful, energetic session. Yeah, so opening up the platform to our participants, if you have any questions, like even specific to your clubs, certain things you really want to discuss or like ask to our speaker, then please do. While you can just raise your hand so our technical team will unmute you, or you can ask your questions in the chat box. While you're coming up with questions, I just wanted to add that Nepal is a country with huge, huge diversity. So we have around 125 caste and ethnic groups with that many languages, more than 123 languages. And Rotary clubs are reflective of the same diversity. So yeah, so such a huge diversity, and here it becomes really important that we emphasize on inclusion of our members. And by inclusion, as you said, it's not only about people, but it's also about hearing and listening to them, and that is so, so important. And that's where we're really trying to focus this year as well as a district. So yeah, if you have any questions, I see someone is typing in the chat box. If you have any questions, please let us know. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful. I think, is it Ija? Aj?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I don't know how to unmute. I'll let you all do that stuff. It looks like they have their hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Toad. So, well, this is my third time listening to you. I remember last year when the COVID pandemic was just beginning. You and one of your friend actually you used to do this session in the midnight in Nepal actually, and then I used to wake up like putting the all around just to listen you, and
Oh,
I'm so I'm so happy that you came here in our district event, and it really feels so honored to have you in the event. And uh, personally, I don't have a question, but I just wanna make you. I mean, I just wanna inform that I'm going to be a club service director of my club, and I was quite confused, like how I should actually include the diverse group of member of my club, because some of them are quite introvert, some are extrovert, and as a club service director, it was my challenge how to include them. But when I was listening, you trust me, man, I just felt it that this is going to be awesome Rotary year. I mean, I really don't know how I'm going to figure it out, but your words actually made a very huge impact on me. So keep on inspiring and keep on, joining our events. It's always honor to have you here. That's all from my side.
Oh, thank you so much. And yes, it's so wow, 4 times. I'm like, oh, I'm surprised that you showed up again. So no, thank you so much. And to your point, I know everyone going into this new Rotary year, and sometimes the answers are in your club, right? Sometimes when we're trying to do bigger, better things, I always say start with the club assembly and ask the questions. What can we do together? Who is missing in the room? What do we want to be known as, at the end of this year? And how can we truly make a difference, especially with the caste system, especially with there's so much diversity, but we also know that it's still in our community. We have the haves and the have not. And so we want to continue to work through that. And so, yes, it's so great to see you again. And yes, I'm always open to join anybody clubs or help talk if I can. So love you, love you, love you. All right, here's another question. The caste system in Nepal, how do you think we as a future leader should dismantle this hierarchy? That is a really great question. What I really want you to think about, my friends, is that you are being the example of today. You can dismantle it by really not, number one, it's really by being the example and not repeating the cycle. And because, like I say, a lot of these influence leaders, they're looking at you because we are the ones that's going to keep this going or dismantle it. So what you got to do, what my advice to you to do is, first, you got to continue to be the example and be bold. Be courageous to stand up and stand up for voices of the unheard and unseen, because you are already connected. You're already in Rotaract, right? So you're already connected to the Rotary family. So use your voices for the voices who can't be there. So that's number one. Be the example. Number two is allow for yourself to be vocal and be bold to speak up, to stand up for what is right. Okay, and that's how we start to dismantle. It's a journey, right? It's a dismantling system. Even like racism in the United States, we're dealing with that. We're still dealing with that, right? But I understand that I may not live to see the day. I may not live to see the day when racism is no longer exists. But guess what? I'd rather live to die trying versus to sit back and not do anything. And that's how I feel about the caste system. I'm not sure if we will live to see the day when it totally just eliminate, but I guarantee you, every day you wake up and you have a breath, that should be the day that caste system continues to be scared, because you are activating your good for the betterment of the world. So that would be my advice to you, is just continue to use your voice and your example to be the change you wish to see. Great question, by the way. Any other questions? You can raise your hand. You can put it in the chat. Okay, here we go. Oh, wow, it's coming in now. I love it. Okay, your comment on equity is actually a hot topic right now. How do we politely ask people to check and recognize their privilege and make sure that they see the struggles of others? Okay, that's a really great question. It always depends, right? It depends on who the person is and what's the situation. But if you have a relationship, or if you're talking with someone in a group setting, it's really what I always tell individuals to start first is, I really do believe that telling your story can cultivate empathy. So start with your story. Start with allowing people to think about a time that they felt excluded. Think about a time that they didn't feel like as if they belong. Think about the time when they first realized it was a caste system. You let people tell that story, because when you start to share that story, a lot of the room start to empathize with, okay, now I understand why this person don't recognize their privilege, because they never experienced this before. See, sometimes we come into the conversation and we expect for someone to get it because we got it. And we need to give them a little more grace. Now I'm not going to say like it's going to take them 10 years to get it. Okay, you may be a little impatient by that time, because you got to also hold our leaders accountable. But I say my number one recommendation is start with storytelling. Number two, also, it start with allowing people to have some experiences outside of their own comfort. So if you can take them to communities of, who are oppressed and allow for them to experience it, to understand that recognition of privilege. And sometimes you just have to really educate them. Some people don't know their own history. And some people don't know how much of privilege they are until you have to rip the Band-Aid off and show them, hey, let's be transparent. Let us see where you're at on the line of privilege. And I think when you have those conversations, a lot of aha moments come on. But I do understand that some people don't feel that, they don't feel as if they're privileged. And they're like, hey, I worked so hard to get here, and that's how I got here. And everyone else should do the same thing. But here's what we're talking about: equity. We're not talking about equity as a handout. We're not talking about people need to get handouts, but what we're talking about is equity is about a hand in. And how are we bringing people in so they can be the best they can be? And sometimes people don't understand that because they never experienced that. And so we have to be able to really have that conversation to help them recognize their biases. So that would be my perspective there. Here's the next question. Just wanted to know how Rotary is messaging inclusion as an international, it went up. Let's see here. As an international district, or will you suggest any Rotaract district on messaging inclusion officially? Let's see here. So I would say that we are working on this as Rotary International, as you know, as this huge organization with so many countries around the world, as well as so many different legislation and local laws. We're trying to build this alliance around inclusivity. And so what we're trying to do is, we actually, as a Rotary International committee, we are defining what these words mean. We're also defining and looking at the stats and the data. So we just did a huge survey that went across the entire world to show us what we need to focus on in each country or each continent. And we're going to narrow it down to local action. So that is actually coming out in July, that we're going to be talking about that report. So be on the lookout for that. Stay tuned, and you will kind of hear more of the messaging. But here's the point that you guys can do as Rotaract clubs, is that you want to show your messaging through your branding and your social media. You want to show your messaging in your programs like we're doing today. You want to show your messaging in your volunteerisms, your service projects. And you also want to recognize, and celebrate your milestones. So you don't always have to have a direct message, but you can message through a lot of different, if you're in PR and marketing, you all know what I'm talking about. But you need to hit it from multiple angles. So it's not just a statement, right? Anybody can put a statement out there about inclusion, but most importantly, what are your actions and what are your behaviors? And so don't forget, messaging is 365, and it's not a response all the time to one episode and one moment. And I think we have to make inclusion about, literally, it's like the 4-way test, the things we think, say, or do, right? What if we did inclusion like that? Wow, that would really change us in the Rotary family. So that would be my messaging and my perspective. All right, let's go to the next one. Hey, Dr. Jenkins, hello. What will you say is the most difficult part of implementing a DEI program? Yes, well, it's many difficult parts when you're dealing with humans, because humans are not always easy to engage with. But I would tell you, the first part is people or organizations who wants to have a quick fix. And what I mean by that is that they immediately want to solve the issue versus understand the process of solving the issue. So that's usually the most difficult problem when implementing a program, is that individuals, they just want to go ahead and say, all right, check box, we got it done. We did this program. We have 5 women. We have this. That is difficult because that's not sustainable, right? That's instant gratification. And so we try to explain people in our process is that you have to look at the 5 Ps. You have to look at your processes. You have to look at your programs. You have to look at your policies. You have to look at your people. And most importantly, you also have to look at the power dynamic. And you have to unpack all of those things in building a successful D&I program. Okay, let's keep going because we're almost at time. Inclusion is not just about including people, but letting their opinions be heard. And we often see that they're pretty able. Okay, the higher up trust their people. What's your take on that? Okay, the higher ups trust their people to come up with ideas and not rely on these able people. Well, I really believe that honestly, you have to involve everyone's voices. I've learned so much for the people who are not in the room. I had to go get them and bring them in the room. So when you see certain voices are not in the room, I encourage for you to try to advocate or be an ally to get them in the room. But also, what you can do when those higher up individuals are not listening to everyone, you have to be strategic and creative, right? To bring these other voices. I really do believe that when we present the platform for people to share, we got to also understand that everyone, even in the marginalized communities, they're not comfortable to share. Sometimes they don't have the courage. So sometimes as Rotaractors, we can help build that connector. We can build that pipeline and build that courage and be in the room with them when they share in our organizations, right? I think that's something we have, like that gift. We have that gift of as a Rotaractor to be that peace builder and that connector. So I really do believe that we have to, it's a process. We have to also encourage the voices to be shared on both ends and create that culture. Okay, let's keep going due to time. What do you think the most challenging aspect of working with a diverse working environment? When have you ever handled a situation when someone is not accepting? Yes, every day in my every day in my work. What we're dealing with a lot with, especially in the U.S. and also across the world, is that some white men are very uncomfortable right now. White men are saying, hey, I'm not a part of diversity and inclusion. People are saying that they don't want to hire people like me. So we're dealing with a lot of those things. So it's been very difficult to engage. And so we have to basically go in and actually spend the time, effort, and energy to kind of reimagine the storytelling. That's why messaging is so important, because sometimes your messaging can be exclusive, that you're not even seeing that. And some people are hearing like, hey, this new initiative does not include me. That's why I always tell people to begin with inclusion, and diversity will naturally happens. All right. Okay, it's a lot more Oh, just three more. Let's keep going really quickly. Um, let's see here. How do we motivate or inspire our team to do the same? Well, you know what? The inspiration starts with you, right? I always tell people, when you go and talk about diversity and inclusion, don't go talk about it like someone just died. Okay, this is not a topic that should make you feel, oh man, like we are making people better. We're making people bigger. So what you could do as a leader is that when you go and tell this story, what you heard today, tell it in a way that you are happy and that you're hopeful, because that messaging psychologically help others not be afraid. It help people embrace the discomfort. So I would say that is what I will say as you can go and motivate others. Hey Todd, great to know you. My question is, we are sometimes comfort in our own zones, and it becomes very difficult to stand up front and this mass of variety. So how can we step forward to communicate and not just sit in the comfort zone? Please share some tips. First, know who you are and be authentically you. Okay? Sometimes we're striving to be something or what we hear. So first I say become comfortable with who you look at every day in the mirror. Okay, that's number one. So it's in order for you to be comfortable to speak in front of others, you got to be comfortable with yourself. So that's number one. Number two is that I would say that just do it. Y'all know YOLO. You only live once. Go out there and do it. It's you don't always have to be the final masterpiece. Okay, everyone always think like whatever you say, it has to be so perfect. No, we're all imperfect in every way, and it's okay that it's a rough draft to the final conversation. So give some grace to yourself, and I would say YOLO, just do it. Go speak up. We're waiting to hear your voices. So my friends, today I know we're at time. I love you all so much. Please stay in touch with me. I look forward to connecting you with your social media. And I am so inspired by everyone being on this call today. And I hope for us to stay in touch. And I'm always here to support you. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your conference and your assembly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. This is amazing. And for me, the largest takeaway, the biggest takeaway was inclusion starts with me, and that it's so important to focus on the messaging and stay positive about this. Thank you for the amazing energy you brought to this session today, and for the amazing so many questions in front of you. We are very delighted and honored to have you in our district assembly. And yeah, by saying that, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you so much again, Dr. Jenkins, and all the participants today. Thank you. Nice weekend, everyone.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye.